It's now 8 minutes to 8. So far, we have 2 Labour MPs officially in the running for leadership of the party. But of course, there will be more. It will be a contest of individuals, but also of ideas of the direction that they will take the party and what they will offer the country in the next general election. The 2 who have declared are Emily Thornberry and Clive Lewis, MP for Norwich South and Shadow Treasury Minister, who is in our radio car. Good morning.
Morning there.
When you announced that you were running for the leadership, you said that there were necessary truths that had to be spoken. To change our country, we need to change ourselves, you said. How would you change Labour?
I think there are a number of things that need to happen. I think, first of all, we need to have a complete analysis of what actually happened in the last general election, where we suffered one of our worst defeats this country has seen. That needs to be an analysis which isn't sectarian in its approach. It needs to basically look at the genuine causes of what actually happened, who voted where and why, as far as we can. And I think that needs to happen very quickly. I support very much the Labour Together approach of looking at this. I hope it is thorough. I hope it is rigorous. But also, I think we have to look at ourselves, and I think you picked up on that. You know, we need to be the change that we want to see. And I think one of the things I will be talking about very heavily is about the need for the fact that our democracy is in crisis. And inside our own party as well, how can we talk about radically changing the democracy in this country in terms of how we vote, in terms of devolution, in terms of giving people more power in their lives if we don't actually have that within our own political party? And that's something that we will need to look at very closely. Otherwise, I think to the electorate, you look like hypocrites. And that's something that we will need to change.
But the defeat is about more than that, isn't it? I mean, what is your analysis of why Labour lost?
It's complicated. I think there will be, and I've heard a number of ideas about why this is. Some of them basically circulate around the fact that it was poor leadership in Jeremy Corbyn. I wouldn't rule out. I mean, I knocked on doors. I saw that Jeremy was certainly an issue. Others will point to the media. I'm not going to say that the election defeat was based solely on the media. I think anyone in the Labour Party knows that the media will be hostile to an incoming or potentially incoming Labour government if it is looking to shake up the system and to radically change things. I think there are issues around Brexit, clearly. We know that most of our votes that we lost went to Remain parties, but it was specifically in the north and in parts of Yorkshire where that trend was bucked, and the Leave voters were the ones that left us. We also know there's a demographic split as well.
Let me pick up on just one of those, because on Brexit, that you would have wanted a different Brexit policy, wouldn't you? You are someone who not only voted in favour of Remain, but resigned from the shadow cabinet.
That's right.
In order to vote against the triggering of Article 50. So would you have wanted there to be an out-and-out Remain position for the party, and do you believe that would have won the election?
I think what we have to understand is what Brexit was, and for many of us watching Brexit unfold, Brexit was a policy of a faction of the Conservative Party and the right of this country that wanted to put globalisation on steroids, if you want, and it was a hard right political project, and I believe that the Labour Party had to fight that with all its vigour and to offer an alternative. And I think one of the things, and I don't believe this was the main reason for what happened to us in the election, but I think one of the things that we have to accept is that if you pick a side, you have to then argue for that side and argue for it comprehensively. And what we didn't do by triangulating, one of the kind of key USPs, you think, of Jeremy Corbyn was that he was an authentic politician. I genuinely believe that he was. But on the biggest political crisis of British modern politics, we were unable, via Jeremy, to be able to take a position. I think actually we should have stood our ground and argued the case, along with the fantastic economic policies that we were offering of redistributing, of power, to be able to say to people that actually that there is an alternative. We didn't do that, and we did pay a price for it. But look, it's not just about Brexit. It's not just about the leadership. It's not just about the general election policy that we pursued. It's also about the fact that for the last 40 years in this country, there has been a decline in those votes in those areas where we collapsed in the general election. And this is something that's been going on for 40 years, and that includes over the period of 1997 to 2010. So to understand what's actually going wrong, what actually went wrong with this vote, you need to look back further than just 2015 or 2010. It's like trying to work out the causes of the Second World War by going no further back than 1938. You have to go back to 1914 and possibly beyond. And so what I would say is we have to work out, why were we not able to connect to people in these heartlands in the north in the East Midlands. Why couldn't we get our message across to them? And I think there are a number of issues here, both in the age split. We know that people under the age of 40 or 45 were basically pretty much pro-Labour or overwhelmingly supportive of us, but over that age, and it declined radically. And I think that's something we have to look at. We also have to look at the fact that when we talked to people and said to people, we understand your lives, we were saying to them that they only got worse from 2010, and that clearly wasn't their experience, because in many of these towns, many of these communities, their lives, their communities have been ripped apart a lot earlier than that, and they hadn't been rebuilt under those Labour years. Now, there were good things that happened under the last Labour government, but
as the contest continues, if we will no doubt be talking to all the leadership contenders. We're out of time now. Thank you very much.
Now, for a quick look at the weather, here's Darren Bett.
Yes.